Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bridging the Gap. I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown. I'm very happy to be here with you this evening and representing Rivers of Living Water United Church of Christ. And we are about to start these conversations on a weekly basis. And on tonight, we have with us Minister David Williams, a longtime friend and brother in Christ. And so I'm just so happy that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so very much. David, do me a favor. Tell the people a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's always kind of a loaded question.
I know.
I am born and raised in Harlem, New York. I am a singer. I am a songwriter. I am a preacher. I have been married for 15 years to my lovely husband, Christopher, who is a shoe designer, CEO of Still Shoes. So it's a little bit about me.
I like that. So, Minister David, I want to talk about the fact that you were married to your husband for 15 years. As a gay man, tell me the ways in which you've had to navigate that, particularly coming from the religious background that you came from.
Oh, wow. I can remember when I first decided I was going to marry Chris, and I didn't tell my mom. And I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and so very staunch beliefs against homosexuality. So I didn't tell my mom, but I told my sister, and my sister got upset with my mom and decided that she was going to say, you're not a good parent because you don't even know that your son's getting married tomorrow. And then I had gotten a phone call from my mom that same day, begging me not to get married. And still 15 years later, though I still do have a relationship with my mom, my husband has no relationship with me.
Wow.
And so, it's been difficult to navigate that, that relationship with my mother.
And we know that religion has a lot to do with it, right? We know that there's a lot of religious oppression, particularly around Black men, Black gay men, and around sexuality, right? Around health issues as well. HIV being one of those things.
Yes.
Tell me how you've had to navigate that through the course of time. That when that HIV was out here, people were dying. We knew people that died.
Yes.
Part of our congregation, we know people who were very close to, who we love, and good friends and brothers, siblings, all of that. How has that been for you in trying to navigate that, particularly in church, because you're still involved in church?
Yes. It's been pretty difficult. Something that I've always had to kind of keep my eye out for, prior to being married, being safe, whatever. And then seeing so many people that I love just pass away. I had a friend, very close friend, Derek Smith, passed away some years ago, which was really devastating to me and really encouraged both me and my husband to kind of like talk about HIV and, try to help people to navigate being safe.
Sure, because you have to negotiate sex.
Yes.
Right.
It's so important. I think that sometimes because it's such a physical and guttural act that sometimes people don't think about it intellectually.
Sure.
And so that's been difficult to navigate because unfortunately, all these years down the line, people still contract the virus.
And that's the funny that you said it, because I was just going to ask you, do you feel that where we are now, 2024, I think the AIDS crisis came out in the early 80s or something like that. Do you feel like we've made any milestones?
I think there's been a lot of milestones as far as like treatment and stuff like that for HIV. Of course, with the millions and millions of dollars that have been acquired over the years from AIDS walks and all kinds of fundraisers, I think there probably should have been more that has been done. I'm still baffled as to how almost 40 years later there's not a cure.
Almost 40 years.
And so, but there has been some milestones, like PrEP and things like that, that help. And then also people who do have the virus, can take medications that allow them not to pass the virus along. So those milestones have been really good in helping stop the spread of it, but definitely more.
So two things. What would you tell young people, young adults? You're fairly young.
Yeah.
right? I was amazed to find out the other day. I'm not going to say share your age, but I thought you were much younger than that. I couldn't believe how old you told me you are and how old you're going to be.
Bless you.
But the thing is, what would you tell young people now, right? Young people, because you know that we're coming out early,
Yeah.
right? So we're not. It's not like teens or 20s or whatever. Like kids are coming out at very very young ages.
Yes.
What would you tell them about HIV and how to navigate around some of the things that they may have to encounter?
I would tell them it's real, and not to minimize it, because I think because there are such new treatments now that people kind of minimizing, oh, I can get it and just take this medication. Well, that's true. You can live a healthy life, even with it. But, if you can avoid it through safe sex practices, then do that, especially because, like you said, children are coming out early,
Absolutely.
and then they're engaging in sexual activity a lot earlier.
Absolutely.
And so it's important that, they be safe and that, they take all the tools that's available to them, because there's many.
Many. This is one of the questions I'm going to ask you. So, religious institutions, church, Jehovah's Witness places, synagogues, mosques, everywhere that people congregate in terms of worshiping the God of their understanding.
Yes.
What would your conversation be to religious institutions if you had to speak and you had a platform and you wanted to say something to the priest, to the imam, to the pastor, to whoever is leading? What would you say to the rabbi?
The sexuality is not something that can be ignored, and that abstinence is not a way to not contract the virus. It's not realistic.
Right.
So in religious institutions, instead of pushing abstinence, which they've been pushing in traditional religious institutions for years, to teach same-sex practices, to have, maybe panels or different kind of programs in your religious institution that reach out to young people, that let them know that there are ways to be safe, that is outside of abstinence, because truthfully, if you turn your back, you cannot stop a young person from doing what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
And so pushing the abstinence is unrealistic, because they're still going to do it, and they won't have the tools they need in order to protect themselves.
So funny, I remember the first time at Rivers when we started giving out condoms.
Yes.
And I remember the pushback that I got. The congregation received, you're giving people a license to sin, you're telling them to go out and have sex. And actually, that's not the message.
Yeah.
That's not the message at all. The message is be safe.
Right.
The message is, as a parent, as a pastor, we don't always know what young people are doing.
Right.
We would like to think that we would like to think that they're not out there doing what we believe they're not out there doing. But the fact is that they are. And so if, in fact, you're going to be out there, I'd rather have a story than, I had sex when I used protection.
Right.
Because I had something to use it with. I mean, obviously, we don't do it no more, but not because of the pushback. We don't really give out condoms anymore because everybody gets out condoms.
Right.
It's not hard for them to find condoms. They can get them for free. It's not even about buying them from the store anymore, right? And so I guess, in my mind, I'm just thinking about the church and all of the vitriol that has come across the pulpits through the years, whether it's a synagogue or a mosque or whatever it might be, and how internally that can do something to you. Tell me something about that, because I know that you lived that.
It has the ability to really break you emotionally, because these are people that you look up to. Your leaders are people that that feed you spiritually, and is someone that you admire. And so when they say certain things, you take those things to heart, and they do really emotionally shape you as you grow. And so, the vitriol, it has to stop. There has to be a fork in the road, a change, because so many children, young people that come out of religious institutions don't make it You know, some of them commit suicide because they feel like they're not worthy.
Yeah.
And so,
and then you become positive.
right.
So now there's something else.
I
So now I'm gay and I'm positive.
yes.
Or I'm a lesbian and I'm positive. Or I'm trans and I'm positive.
Yes.
And I'm black.
So all three things on top of one.
So these are already strikes. I haven't even gotten out the gate yet.
Yes.
I haven't even begun to really live the life that I want to live. Right? So I'm working with the HIV vaccine trial network, and they have a faith-based initiative for us to be able to, us as clergy, to be able to talk about HIV, COVID, and all the other things that are happening, epidemics that are happening, but having real conversations that church people need to hear.
Yes.
Because one of the things you don't want to hear as a black gay man is that you're going to hell.
Yes.
Or that God is not pleased with your life. Or that God doesn't love you because of who you choose to love. Even in this month of Pride, those messages are swirling if you go, especially social media.
Yeah.
So you hear people going back and forth about that, negative conversations. If a young person, an adult too, right? Because there's still adults who have suppressed themselves and repressed themselves because of the same conversations, because of the same religious intolerance, because of what I call theology that is what's the word I want to use? It's just bad theology, right? What would you tell a young person that has experienced these things and are now in a suicidal space?
I would tell them, hold on just a little while longer.
Yeah.
And also that there are spaces that will embrace you. I wish when I was young, as a teenager, that I knew that those spaces existed.
When did you come out?
I was 19.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so technically an adult.
Sure.
But
still a teenager.
Yes, it's still a teenager. And then immediately my life was turned upside down. It was like no space in between or trying to get to figure it out. It was immediately I went from having security to being housing insecure.
Wow.
And so I would tell them that, there's life after that. And if they just hold on, that there are resources, there are people who care, there are houses of worship that will embrace you. And don't give up so early.
That's it. Don't throw in the towel. I think that's a message that we all need to hear, right? I tend to lean towards young people, young adults, young people, but I also know that there's some adults that need to hear it too. There's some adults that are still going through shame, still going through brokenness, because when you get put out of your home, you don't just get put out of that home that you live in, but you also get put out of your religious community.
Yes.
Right? So now you all the way out, and now I'm away from people who say they love me, who say they care for me. The environment that I grew up in, I was raised in, I can no longer be a part of that environment because now they see me as a pariah.
Yes.
And now they see me as somebody that has a stigma because I'm HIV positive, and I really don't feel like I have any way to turn. But I've heard this message before. I've heard something uplifting, right? I found out that there were some affirming churches that I can go to. And now we know, right, that there are so many affirming churches, so many affirming denominations now, that people can still live out their faith in the ways that they would like to, even in the ways in which they were raised, right? And still have the relationship with God. Because I think part of the thing is, David, that we made church God.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to separate church, the gathering of the saints, the gathering of the people with who God is, right, in their life.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, God and church was, right, all one thing.
Right.
But thanks be to God, we know something different. Tell us about that.
I once said, I did a concert, and I once said, regardless of the fact that I experienced oppressive religion, it did not remove me from God.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for that because having a community, it really did save my life. When I first became homeless, I somehow stumbled upon MCC, New York, and they had a shelter there. Yes, Reverend Pat, and she embraced me as well, and I gained a spiritual community there for some years, and that really did save my life because coming from such a close knit spiritual community, I needed to have a community of people that still believed in the power of God. Because
how long did you stay in that shelter?
I was there about maybe a year and a half before I moved to another to the house where they said
yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought it up because pulling all these names, they still have these shelters.
Yes.
MCC still has that shelter. Sylvia's Place, exactly. That's called Alley Forney Center still has that shelter. Actually, they have different spaces now. They expanded. And so grateful for that. We all know that Alley Forney was also a teen.
Yes.
Young person who was murdered and unsheltered.
Yes.
Right? And gay.
Yes.
And Black. Right? These things mean a lot. So you have a broad base of experience, Minister David. You have an audience, not just for religious purposes, but also for your music and where your music is taking you. And tell us a little bit about your music and what you want to do with it, what you feel the impact it could be.
Well, I always said that music is like a catalyst for change. It is one of the things that unites people, regardless of where we come from. Everyone is attached and loves music, and it really does unite us. And so I think that, like Nina Simone says, that an artist ought to reflect the time.
Absolutely.
And so when I write my music, I try to write about my experiences, but also the experiences of other people. And my last project is called The Truth.
Yes.
And the whole entire project is about my journey from religious bondage to freedom.
Tell us how to get that project.
It's available on all social platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. Anywhere you look, Dave Toney, The Truth.
Listen, everybody, you've met him. I think he's quite wonderful. You've heard the story, and I want to thank the HIV Vaccine Trial Network for giving me this opportunity. And we want you to keep tuning in on a weekly basis, on Sundays in June and Mondays in the month of July and August. We'll have different guests come in. We'll be speaking in groups as well. We want you to join us for these conversations. You need to hear. I believe in storytelling, and I believe in people telling their own story. And I believe in you joining us. Thank you for being here with us. We say God bless you and have a wonderful evening.